It was a humid afternoon in Lagos when Adrian and Nneka landed at Murtala Muhammad Airport. After 7 years abroad, first for his degree in business management at the University of Cambridge, and then working with a global firm in Dubai, he had finally returned home to Nigeria. Not for vacation, not for business, but for something far more personal, marriage. He hated the idea. "You're almost 30, Adrian," his father had said firmly over the phone. "And it's time you start taking responsibility. You will marry the girl we've chosen," end of discussion. Adrian had scoffed at the notion. "What is this, 1955? I don't even know this girl." "You don't need to. She's the daughter of a trusted family friend. She's humble, quiet, well-raised, and she will be good for the family name." No matter how much Adrian pushed back, the wedding plans had rolled on without pause. Before he knew it, he was back home, dressed in Igbada, smiling for press cameras, and standing beside a girl he had never even spoken to. Her name was Nneka. From the first moment Adrian saw her, he felt underwhelmed. She was soft-spoken, polite, but her face was constantly buried under a thick layer of unflattering makeup, grayish foundation, oversized glasses, and terribly drawn eyebrows that made her almost cartoonish. She rarely looked him in the eye. During their brief introductions, she barely said a word beyond, "Yes, sir," or "No, sir." His friends snickered. "You're marrying a village girl with no swag," one of them muttered behind his back. Adrian tried not to care. This was just a formality. He'd handle it like a business deal, perform his duties as a husband, and keep things civil. After all, he had a future to build at the family's oil conglomerate, Obesai Group Holdings. The wedding was a grand affair in Enugu, filled with wealthy guests, overflowing drinks, and traditional dancers. But as night fell and the reception faded into silence, Adrian found himself alone in their honeymoon suite at a luxury hotel in Lagos, uncomfortable, unsure, and deeply uninterested. When Nneka entered the room in her nightwear, she still had her heavy makeup on. She looked anxious, almost fearful. "You don't have to pretend, Nneka," Adrian said, loosening his tie. "I know this marriage wasn't your idea either. Let's just take things slow. No pressure." She nodded quickly. "Okay, but may I go to the bathroom first?" "Of course." She stepped into the bathroom, closing the door softly behind her. Adrian sank into the bed and exhaled. It had been a long day. Too much tradition. Too many expectations. He closed his eyes. He didn't hear the door open again, not until a soft voice whispered, "Adrian." He opened his eyes and sat straight up. The woman standing before him was not the one he had married that afternoon. She had removed the terrible makeup and the thick glasses. Her skin was flawless, glowing like polished bronze under the soft bedroom lights. Her almond eyes were framed by thick lashes, her lips full and naturally pink. She looked like something out of a dream. His heart slammed in his chest. "Wait, what?" he said, blinking. "It's still me," she said quietly, almost apologetically. "Nneka." He stared, stunned. "This is you." She nodded, then looked down. "My aunties made me wear the bad makeup. Since I was little. They said if I looked too pretty, I'd attract the wrong kind of attention. When I was 13, someone tried to kidnap me after school because of my father's land holdings. Ever since then, I've been hidden." Adrian stood up slowly, still staring. "So all this time, I'm the only child of Chief Ibe," she explained, almost whispering. "The farmland they joke about? It's actually oil land. My parents never wanted the world to know how much we're worth. I'm worth more than 10 times your family company, but I don't like to flaunt it." Adrian took a step toward her, feeling a strange mix of awe, guilt, and gratitude. He had spent weeks dreading this marriage, thinking he was being tied to an ordinary girl. Yet here she was, a quiet, intelligent woman who had been protecting her beauty and fortune in the most unconventional way. He couldn't stop looking at her. "You're beautiful," he whispered. She blushed. "You don't have to say that." "I mean it," he interrupted. "You're stunning, and smart, and mysterious, and I don't know what I did to deserve you, but, God, I'm grateful. Nneka, you're the best mistake I never meant to make." She smiled shyly. Maybe this mistake was fate. Adrian stepped closer, cupping her face gently. "I think I just fell in love tonight." Sunlight filtered through the tall curtains of the hotel suite, casting golden beams across the floor. Adrian lay awake, his head on the same pillow as Nneka's, silently studying the contours of her face. She looked so peaceful, so beautiful, so untouched by the chaos that had brought them together. He smiled to himself. All his life, he had chased glamorous women with loud laughs and louder outfits. But none of them had ever looked at him the way Nneka did last night, with depth, with mystery, with vulnerability. He didn't just admire her beauty now, he respected her story. Every thick layer of makeup she'd worn had been armor, forged from pain, protection, and survival. She hadn't hidden herself from him out of shame, but out of necessity. He reached out and brushed a strand of hair from her face. Her eyes fluttered open. "You're staring," she whispered, voice still heavy with sleep. "I'm studying," he replied, grinning. "I just want to be sure I didn't dream last night." She rolled her eyes and tried to pull the blanket over her head. "Nope. Not hiding again," Adrian said, gently tugging it back down. "If I had known who you really were, I would have proposed with fireworks and a private jet." "I wouldn't have said yes," she teased. "Oh, why?" "Because I thought you were one of those spoiled returnees. Loud, arrogant, full of self." Adrian laughed. "Ouch. Accurate. But still ouch." They shared a warm, lingering gaze before Nneka rose and slipped into the bathroom. A few minutes later, she returned, barefaced, glowing, confident. "Today I'll show you the real me," she said softly. Adrian stood and reached for her hand. "And I'll introduce you to the real me too, the one that isn't hiding behind foreign degrees and suits." Later that afternoon, the couple arrived at the sprawling Obesai estate. The compound was buzzing with staff, family members, and distant relatives who had stayed behind after the wedding. Some of them gave Nneka quick glances, still seeing her as the dull, awkward girl with bad makeup. Adrian, however, did not let her walk 2 steps without holding her hand proudly. His mother, Lady Ifeoma Obesai, narrowed her eyes as they entered the drawing room. "What's this now?" she said coldly. "Why is her face bare?" "Mummy," Adrian said sternly, "this is my wife. You will speak to her with respect." Ifeoma blinked, surprised. Her son had never spoken like that before, not even as a teenager. "And besides," he added with a sly smile, "I think she looks radiant." Nneka offered a polite bow. "Good afternoon, Ma." Lady Ifeoma offered a stiff nod in return, but her eyes lingered, curious now. The next day, Adrian returned to work at the Obesai Group headquarters in Victoria Island. He hadn't expected Nneka to join him, but there she was, stepping out of the car in a cream blazer and well-tailored trousers, minimal makeup, and her hair pulled back in a neat bun. "You're coming up with me?" he asked. "I know I may not look it, but I studied international finance in South Africa," she replied casually. "Dad always said I'd need it one day. Besides, it's time people started seeing me." When they entered the boardroom for a lunch meeting, Adrian's uncles and some of the company directors looked confused. "Who is this?" one of them asked rudely. "My wife," Adrian said firmly. "And she's here to stay." Before anyone could respond, Nneka stepped forward. "Hello, gentlemen. I'm Nneka IB. My father is Chief Elijah IB of IB Petroleum Fields, Owerri. I believe our companies have done business in the past. I'm here to talk synergy." There was a moment of stunned silence, then murmurs. Everyone in the room had heard of IB Petroleum, but none of them had ever connected it to the quiet girl with mismatched lipstick and ash-colored foundation. Adrian looked around the room, his heart swelling with pride. He had just played the biggest jackpot of his life. That evening, as they returned home, a black SUV parked a few meters from their gate. The tinted windows rolled down slightly, and inside, a pair of eyes watched them closely. A voice on the phone whispered, she's showing her face now, "That wasn't the plan. Tell Chief we may have a problem." Nneka paused at the door, suddenly uneasy. Adrian touched her back gently. "What's wrong?" She shook her head slowly. "I'm not sure, but I think the past is starting to notice me again." 2 days after Nneka's quiet but powerful debut at the Obesai Group boardroom, things began to shift, both in whispers and in actions. Phone calls were made in hushed tones. Old enemies stirred, and a name long buried in political and corporate files resurfaced. Chief Elijah IB's daughter. Back at the Obesai mansion, Adrian sat on the garden bench, watching as Nneka flipped through blueprints of her family's newest refinery project. "You know," he said, "I thought I was the big deal in this marriage." She chuckled. "You still are. I'm just the secret weapon." "Dangerously beautiful weapon," he said, pulling her close. Just then, a steward came running. "Olga Adrian, madam, there's someone here to see you." He said he's from the east. Adrian stood, brows raised. "Did he give a name?" "No, sir, but he came with security. Black SUV. And he's scary." Nneka's smile dropped. "I think I know who it is." In the marble-tiled living room sat a man in his late 60s. He wore a black kaftan, gold rings on his fingers, and a walking cane carved from ivory. His face bore deep tribal lines, and his eyes held both wisdom and warning. "Uncle Yuzo," Nneka whispered as she entered. "I didn't expect you." "Nneka," the man said in a low voice, his Igbo accent rich and commanding. "Why have you removed the veil?" Adrian stood protectively beside her. "She's not hiding anymore," he said. "She's my wife. She doesn't need to pretend." Yuzo eyed him coolly. "So, you are the husband, the foreign one with soft hands and loud confidence." Adrian straightened, but Nneka touched his arm gently. "Uncle," she said softly, "I'm tired of hiding. All these years of wearing clown makeup just so no one knows who I am, it's over. I want to live, to love, to build something with Adrian." Yuzo's jaw tightened. "There are people still watching, Nneka," he warned. "People who never stopped wanting what you have. If you show your face, they will come. And this time they will not fail." She looked down, then up again with fire in her eyes. "Let them come. I'm no longer a child. And I'm not alone." Adrian stepped forward. "Who exactly are we dealing with?" Yuzo turned to him slowly. "Years ago, when her father refused to sell part of their land to a certain political syndicate, they tried to take Nneka. Twice. Once at school. Once from the market. We put out a story that she was sent abroad. In truth, she remained here, hidden in plain sight." "Wearing her armor," Adrian murmured. Yuzo nodded. "But now you've lifted it, and the dogs will smell the truth." Later that night, while Adrian and Nneka sat in the study poring over documents, Adrian's phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "Tell your wife the mask was protecting more than her beauty. We know where she sleeps now." His heart skipped. He showed Nneka, and for the first time, she looked visibly shaken. "Do you think it's real?" she whispered. "Babe, this isn't a prank. This is war." He stood, locked the windows, and called his private security contact. "Get me 2 armed men outside this house every night starting now. And check our CCTV feed, tonight and last night." But even as the house tightened its security, the real danger wasn't in the shadows anymore. 2 days later, at Obesai Group headquarters, Adrian overheard a conversation between his uncle and a man he didn't recognize in the corridor near the elevators. "She's becoming a liability," the man whispered. "You should have married the senator's daughter as planned." Adrian froze. His uncle replied, "Don't worry. These heiresses come with baggage. She'll slip up. When she does, we'll make sure she disappears, quietly." Adrian's blood ran cold. He turned and walked away as though nothing had happened, but inside, a fire had started. He raced home, only to find Nneka already waiting, her eyes wide. "They were at my father's old office," she said. "The files we locked in the vault. Someone broke in." Adrian clenched his fists. "They're making their move." The sun had not yet risen when Adrian and Nneka packed 2 small bags and left the Obesai mansion under the cover of darkness. Only 2 people knew of their journey: Adrian's most trusted friend, Emeka, and Nneka's aged housemaid from her childhood, Mama Zika. The threat had become too real. Between the threatening messages and the overheard conspiracy within Adrian's own family, it was clear someone was working to erase Nneka permanently. And the key to stopping them lay in Enugu, inside a forgotten vault in her father's abandoned estate. "There's something my father left behind," Nneka explained as they drove through the early morning mist. "A signed will, a document that names me as the sole heir to his assets, including the land titles. Without it, anyone can challenge my claim." Adrian glanced at her as he drove. "So that's what they're after. Not just your face, not your silence, control of the land." She nodded. "And if they get it, they'll erase me. Enugu had changed. The once vibrant city of red dust and smoky suya corners had grown into a blend of quiet wealth and rural power. As they approached her father's old home, memories flooded back, of laughter, of guards at the gate, of her mother's perfume. Now the house stood silent. The paint had peeled, vines had crept along the walls, and the gate was rusted and bent. But the danger was still fresh. Adrian parked a few meters away, hidden behind a line of trees. "You're sure no one knows about this place?" "No one except my father's most loyal driver, and he passed away years ago." They entered through the side, Nneka leading him through the dusty corridors like a shadow returning home. Behind a bookshelf in the study was a secret door, her father's vault. She hesitated. "I haven't been here in almost 10 years. Adrian placed a hand on her shoulder. "Whatever's inside, we face it together." Inside the vault was a metal box wrapped in plastic and old newspapers. Inside it, they found folders stamped with the IB family crest, original oil field leases, and, most importantly, a signed handwritten will dated 3 weeks before Chief Elijah IB's death. Adrian read it aloud, astonished. "I leave the entirety of IB petroleum fields, including the disputed lands in Omiuma, to my daughter, Nneka IB. No part shall be sold, signed over, or transferred to any political body, syndicate, or associate of the Eastern Business Coalition. Any attempt to do so should be considered fraudulent and void under Nigerian law." "This is it," he said, almost breathless. "This document destroys their plan." Nneka exhaled slowly. "Then we have to get it registered before they know we have it." They were no more than 10 minutes from the estate when Adrian noticed it. A silver Prado SUV trailing their car from the main road. "Nneka," he said quietly, "don't panic, but we're being followed." She turned slightly, then swallowed. "Same SUV from Lagos." "Looks like it." Adrian pressed his foot harder on the accelerator. The SUV matched him. They weaved through Enugu town until Adrian took a sharp right into a market area, blending into the crowd. He parked behind a vendor's stall and yanked the keys. "Out," he said. "Quickly." They ducked through alleys, dodging between crates of onions, yam, and shouting traders. Nneka clutched the briefcase with the will like her life depended on it, because it did. Behind them, the SUV stopped. 2 men stepped out. One wore all black and carried something beneath his jacket. Just when it seemed they were cornered, a hand grabbed them and pulled them into a small pharmacy. "Adrian," it was Nneka. "I had a feeling you two wouldn't make it out safely. I hired someone to trace you. Hurry, I have a car in the back. Let's get out of here." They sprinted through the back door, just as one of the men from the SUV shouted in the alley. Shots rang out. "Pop! Pop!" Nneka screamed, ducking. Adrian shielded her with his body as they leaped into the waiting car. "Go, go, go!" Nneka shouted. They sped off into the red dust of Enugu, hearts pounding. By the time they returned to Lagos, Nneka had submitted the documents to her father's former lawyer. The will was filed. The documents were protected, but there was no time to celebrate. That evening, Adrian's father summoned him. In the cold mahogany office at the heart of the Obesai estate, Chief Obesai poured himself a glass of whiskey and stared long at his son. "You've made things difficult," he said. Adrian sat across from him, silent. Marrying that girl was not the plan. The IB name carries danger. Now her enemies are our enemies. She's my wife, and she's family now. Chief Obesai leaned forward. "Then prepare for war, son, because the people you just crossed don't lose easily." The Obesai mansion was no longer a place of safety. It had become a house of eyes, ears, and secrets. Since Adrian and Nneka's return from Enugu, the tension within the compound had turned thick enough to cut with a knife. Staff that once greeted Nneka with polite smiles now avoided her gaze. Whispers followed her down the corridors. Doors closed just a little too quickly as she passed. Even Adrian's cousins, the once indifferent Obesai boys, now stared at her with something like disdain, or was it fear? And behind it all, the cold, calculating silence of Chief Obesai. 1 week later, a brown envelope was delivered to Adrian's private office. There was no name, no return address, just a single line on the front. "You don't know who you married." Inside the envelope was a flash drive, and inside the drive a video. Adrian clicked play. It was grainy, dated. The timestamp showed it had been recorded nearly 12 years ago. In the footage, a young Nneka, barely 16, was crying on the floor of a large, ornate sitting room. Standing over her was an older man in a political uniform, shouting. 2 guards held Nneka by the arms. "I said sign the agreement," the man bellowed. "I won't," young Nneka cried out. "My father said not to trust you." The video froze. A text appeared on the screen. "Her hands are not as clean as you think." Adrian sat back, his mind spinning. The video had clearly been cut, edited, manipulated. But it didn't matter. In the wrong hands, it could ruin her. Worse, it could destroy everything they were building. That night, Adrian returned home later than usual. He found Nneka in the study, reading from a thick, leather-bound book, her father's personal journal. He placed the envelope on the table without a word. She looked at it, then at him. "What's this?" "You tell me." She opened the envelope, saw the drive, and immediately went pale. "Where did you get this?" she asked quietly. "It came to my office. No sender. Just threats." Nneka sank into the couch. For a long time, she didn't speak. Then, in a soft, cracked voice, she said, "That night, the man in the video was Senator Udoka." Adrian's eyes widened. "The Senator Udoka? The same one your father refused to partner with?" She nodded. "He wanted to force me to sign away the land. When I refused, he tried to fabricate proof that I had signed under pressure. The video was their backup plan, part truth, part lie. We thought it had been destroyed." Adrian paced. Someone in this house knew it still existed. Nneka raised her eyes to his, fear rising in her chest. "You think it came from your family? I think it came from mine or yours. Either way, they want to break us." 2 days later, Nneka barged into Adrian's office with a look of disbelief on his face. "I follow the source of that flash drive," he said breathlessly. "And you're not going to believe who uploaded it." Adrian stood up. "Who?" "Your cousin, Chuka Obesai." Adrian's heart sank. Chuka, the smiling one. The one who always joked about small girls with big money. The one who had once tried to flirt with Nneka at the wedding, thinking no one noticed. "Why?" Adrian whispered. Nneka pulled out his phone and played a voice note. "That girl thinks she can just come in here and take over what we've been building for years. Let her have her oil fields. Obesai Holdings will never belong to a woman who wore powder to hide her shame." Adrian clenched his jaw. He's the one feeding the syndicate. He's the leak. That evening, Adrian returned to the Obesai estate with fire in his chest. He found Chuka in the lounge, sipping wine and scrolling through his phone. "I know what you did," Adrian said calmly. Chuka smirked. "Do you, though? I know you leaked the flash drive. I know you've been working with Udoka. And I know you tried to set up my wife." Chuka stood unbothered. "She's not one of us, Adrian. She's just a political tool wrapped in a pretty face. You don't protect women like that, you use them." Adrian punched him. Hard. Chuka staggered back, crashing into the glass table. Blood dripped from his nose, and his phone clattered to the floor. "She's not just my wife," Adrian growled. "She's everything." 3 days after the violent confrontation with Chuka, the household was silent. Tension hung thick like the heat before a storm. Nneka sat by her father's old journal, flipping through the pages once more. She had read it a dozen times, but something kept pulling her back. And then, tucked between the pages of July 14th, she found it, a small envelope sealed with wax and her father's crest. She opened it, and inside was a handwritten letter. "My darling Nneka, if you are reading this, then I am long gone, and you are in danger. The men I refuse to bow to will come for you, your name, and what I built. But you are not weak. You are not hidden anymore. You are fire clothed in skin. Enclosed are the coordinates to the offshore trust account registered under your name. Use it to defend yourself. Use it to rise." Asterisk. Attached was a small metallic key and a string of numbers. Nneka whispered, "Papa, you knew this day would come." Adrian walked in and saw the letter in her hands. "What is it?" She looked up, eyes shining. "It's our way out, but it's also our way to fight back." Weeks passed, and then came the legal attack. Senator Udoka, through his syndicate allies, filed a lawsuit challenging Nneka's inheritance and the legitimacy of the will. Backed by political influence and bribe judges, They moved to freeze all assets related to IBE petroleum fields. But they had not counted on the offshore trust account Nneka now controlled. Adrian and Nneka flew in two of the best attorneys from Cape Town and Abuja. The courtroom battles were intense. Every day, newspapers speculated. Can the heiress survive the oil war? Obesai family splits over secret marriage. Who really owns IBE land? But Nneka stood tall in court, her voice calm, her evidence unshakable. And when the original signed video was revealed, unedited and timestamped, the court saw the truth. Nneka had been the victim, not the traitor. The judge, weary and sharp-eyed, made his ruling. The court recognizes Nneka IBE as the rightful heir to all assets belonging to the IBE petroleum estate. All opposing claims are hereby dismissed with prejudice. This matter is closed. Nneka exhaled slowly. The room exploded in whispers. Adrian reached for her hand. It's over, he whispered. No, she smiled. It's only beginning. But even in defeat, Senator Udoka did not go quietly. A week after the ruling, he arranged for one last meeting, privately, in a glass skyscraper in Victoria Island. Adrian and Nneka entered the boardroom with security. Udoka stood at the far end, aged but still arrogant, dressed in his signature agbada, and holding a glass of red wine. You've won, he said simply. But you're a child. You don't know the price of staying in power. I don't need power, Nneka replied. I just need the truth. Udoka smirked. Then let me tell you some truth. You married into a family that was willing to sell you for profit. Even now, some of them still wish you'd disappear. You don't belong here. Adrian stepped forward. She belongs wherever she chooses. And I belong with her. Udoka laughed once. Romantic fools. You'll regret crossing me. But Nneka placed a flash drive on the table. This contains your conversations with Chuka, your bribes to judges, and your attempt to forge my signature 12 years ago. If anything happens to us, it goes public. Worldwide. Udoka's smile disappeared. She leaned in and whispered, You lost the day I stopped hiding. Months passed. Nneka launched her own energy firm, Phoenix Oil and Renewables, focusing on cleaner, ethical oil distribution and women-led boardrooms. With Adrian at her side as CEO of strategy, the company became one of Nigeria's fastest-growing enterprises. Obesai Holdings, fractured and humbled by the internal betrayal, slowly began to rebuild, with Adrian's father finally acknowledging, You chose well, my son. As for Chuka, he fled the country. Rumor had it he now worked for a construction firm in Ghana, far from the power he craved. One quiet evening, Nneka stood on the balcony of their new Lagos home, the ocean breeze in her hair. Adrian came up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. Do you miss the mask? He teased. She laughed softly. No. I found someone who saw the real me, even when I didn't see myself. And I found a queen hiding behind powder and courage. She turned to him. Do you ever think, what if you had walked away after that wedding night? He smiled. Then I'd be the biggest fool in West Africa. They kissed beneath the night sky. No more masks, no more secrets, just two souls that survived fire and built an empire from its ashes. She was never ordinary. She was simply hidden. The end. Dear viewers, thank you for watching. Please subscribe, like and share your thoughts in the comment section below. See you in the next story.